Thank
Sarah,
you so much.
do we need to read it into the record first?
Caroline did that. We can do it again.
We didn't hear her. Okay, so now that the applicants are here, I'm gonna give the presentation to Maria Chen.
I
Yes.
guess I'll read it into the record again if it wasn't picked up this time. Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. It's an application in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 2404150, 67 Greene Street in the Soho Cast Iron Historic District, Block 486, Lot 26. A neo-Grec style store building designed by Henry Fernbach and built in 1872 to 73. And the application is to replace the stair platform.
Okay, Maria, you now have control of the presentation. You just need to click on your screen and then you can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse.
Hi, Winnie.
There you go. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
I'm sorry, it's Steve Wygoda. How are you?
Hi. All right.
It's
Steve,
Steve
go
Wygoda.
ahead. Please go
Sorry.
ahead with the presentation.
Yeah, okay. No, sorry. And Chang Lin will do the presentation. I just wanted to shout out to Sarah. Haven't talked to you in a long time. But
Okay.
Chang will, hi, Sarah. Chang will, hi. Go ahead, Chang. Chang, are you on, Chang? Chang? Yeah,
Yeah, sorry about that. Couldn't find the unmute button.
all right.
So the project we're presenting today is 67 Greene Street and is currently located in Soho Cast Iron District. The two photos that you see in front of you are the 1940s and 1980s tax photos. So this is the building right here. It's a sister building along with 65 Greene Street. These are some of the adjacent buildings that were recently renovated, and we would like to use some of their completed work as precedents in order to perform our work. So as you can see at 69 Greene Street, they had the diamond plate platform, and when they renovated, they included the handrails, which is a similar approach we are going with, along with 66 Greene Street and 45 Greene Street. They all have the step platform in front of the door, and when renovated, they included the handrail. Right now, you see the existing photos of the current condition. As you can see, work needs to be done in order to beautify the building and improve it. So this is a diamond plate platform. Over here is 65, and then the other half is 67. This is the photo looking downwards, looking south at the neighboring building. And this is the photo looking north at the neighboring building. So this is the contextual photos of both buildings sharing a platform. These two photos were taken in the cellar, showing the two cast iron columns, which is located in the front of the within the sidewalk vault, and underneath above it you will see the underside of the diamond plate. So right now this is the existing storefront with the showing the difference of material of the diamond plate and the existing granite stone. So we're looking to remove all of the diamond plate and replace it with new diamond plate and new stair along with handrail. So there will be a grade change, and we're gonna set back the existing platform, which ends right here, and we're gonna set it back to allow for 3 feet clearance between the grade and the platform. So these two diagrams are just showing the change in materials. Right now, you're seeing the underside of the sidewalk within the sidewalk vault, showing why we're proposing this work, because as you can see, some steel were corroded and will need to be replaced. These diamond plates will also need to be replaced due to the overall existing condition of the space. This drawing is showing the relationship between 67 and 65 Greene Street. 65 Greene Street was approved back in 2020. It went through public hearing, and the permit was issued up 2 months ago for the work, for the same work, which is to restore which is to renovate the diamond plate and the sidewalk. So these 2 presentations are just showing the storefront, and at the end of the day, how we want the 2 buildings to be married together. So here is a close-up view of the screen. So what we're doing is, right now existing, there's 1 continuous platform. We are lowering this half to the sidewalk, and then the step right in front of the storefront, and then recess and back to step where the door are. These are just showing typical details of how we're providing the renovations. We're building the diamond plate on top of a concrete slab in order to provide additional waterproofing in between the exterior and the interior, and they'll all be resting on a new steel beam. So these are additional close-up details of the construction, and here is a axle showing how everything will be built. These are additional photos for reference showing the existing cast iron column on 67 Greene Street. Okay, that's the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions at this time? Okay, not seeing any questions. I'll note that there is nobody in the room to speak on this item, so I will turn it over to Gregory Kalla to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. If you would like to speak on this item, please click the raise hand button now. Okay, I do not see any hands raised on this item. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval of the removal of the platform, reconfiguration of the entrances, provided that these steps are modified to provide nosing and replacing the diamond plate in kind, that the applicant provide. Oh, my mistake. This might be the wrong resolution. Sorry, one moment. Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval of the removal of the platform, reconfiguration of the entrances, provided that the steps are modified to provide nosing and replace the diamond plate in kind, and that the applicant provide ADA access of the 2 entrances. Okay, yep, sorry about that.
Okay, that's fine. So I'd like to ask the applicant team if you'd like to respond to the community board's testimony.
Sure. In regards to ADA access, so as part of the work that's being done on 65 Greene Street, currently there is a freight elevator within this bay, and we are lowering it to the street in order to provide elevator access. from the sidewalk onto the first floor and all other floors. And to gain access to 67, the ownership would like to utilize the existing opening that are connected between the two buildings in order to provide ADA access to the floors.
And it's the same owner that has owned the two buildings for a long time.
Okay, any final questions? Yes, one more, Stephen Chu, Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, so the application is, for one of the two buildings, is the step at the entry, the storefront being revised also in 65?
Yes, it was revised and approved in, I would say, like a month or two ago,
Oh,
and permit was issued, correct?
all right, thank you.
All right, so, right, these two buildings, which are really twin buildings, are separate buildings, and we approved the same thing on number 65, and they're now asking to do the same thing on number 67. Okay, any final questions, commissioners? All right, let's close the hearing and begin our discussion. Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thanks. And Commissioner Holford Smith, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right. So as we've heard, this is a change to a single bay and the platform in front of it to install new doors and steps. And this is something that we approved at the Twin Building not too long ago, and they're seeking approval at this building. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Master, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think this is pretty straightforward. I think it's reasonable. They're just replacing the diamond plate and they're putting new stairs in, which is necessary. And we approved the one adjacent, so I think this is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Lutfi? Oh, sorry, you weren't here. Okay. Commissioner Chu,
Appropriate.
Commissioner Holford Smith? Appropriate. Okay, does anyone have additional comments? Okay, so in the interest of time, I think we can, thank you. I think we are all in agreement. And Commissioner Master, would you make the motion?
Sure.
Thanks.
In the matter of LPC-24-04150, 67 Greene Street, Soho Cast Iron Historic District, a neo-Greek style store building designed by Henry Fernbach and built in 1872-73, application is to replace the stair platform. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. I also note that the buildings 65 and 67 Greene Street were built at the same time with identical facades. I recommend approval, finding that the loading dock has been altered over time, is utilitarian in nature, and there are no remaining concealed vault lights. Therefore, the proposed modifications will not eliminate significant historic fabric, that the proposed steps featuring black finished diamond plate cladding and black finished metal railings will be consistent with entrance stairs found at neighboring buildings and throughout the historic district, that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building of the Soho Cast Iron Historic District.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right. And Emma, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Lufty, Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith,
Aye. And Commissioner Chapin?
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Nine in favor, none opposed.
8 in favor.
Eight in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
Okay, that's approved. Thank you. And
Thank
we'll
you
move-
all. Bye.
All right, commissioners, because we're running late and in the interest of time, we're going to be skipping some items and reading them into the record. If the next item was scheduled as item number 5 for 57 to 59 Christopher Street. And if anyone is here to testify, please note that it will be on a future agenda when we will open the hearing and take testimony. So we're going to skip over that and head to item number 6, which is docket number 2311959, 101 to 111 West 10th Street, also known as 445 to 451 6th Avenue in the Greenwich Village Historic District, Borough of Manhattan, Block 606, lots 73, 74, 75, and 77. An application for a certificate of appropriateness, a row of 6 houses built in 1836. The application is to modify a storefront and signage master plan approved under C of A 96-0125.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for hearing us today. This application is for modification of the storefront and a signage master plan, and it's 101 to 111 West 10th Street. Presenting with me is the architect Norman Cox of Union Street Studios. The 6 buildings, did I skip vetting? What happened to? Wasn't for it. Go back. All right, 1, 2. Okay. The 6 buildings were built as a row in 1835 to 36, Samuel Smith. There have been a lot of alterations over the nearly 200 years. Several of the buildings have been joined internally and also consolidated into lots. But from the outside, they look like separate buildings. This is 1922. The buildings, as you can see, were treated individually, except for that corner drugstore, and the storefronts all look different. The end buildings, which you can't see, 109 to 111, tended to be kind of a pair. The group did have a single roof cornice, at least from the 1920s, but the storefronts were all individual. There were similar cornices or a single cornice from 103 to 107, but the buildings read individually. The sign bands were not continuous, which you can kind of see on in that photo. And those large signs, which you can't have today, really made those individual buildings stand out. In that top illustration, it's from 1880. And that's when the L was still there. And the ground floors were completely different. They had large awnings. There was a marquee at 101. You have to look hard. At the time of the designation, down at the bottom left, the storefronts were separate and unique. You can see, we'll be coming into this later. 101 has a low storefront. Let's see if I can work this. And that's because there's a large beam installed above the storefront, and that informs the new design that you're going to see. These maps show the progression of the row, which is interestingly framed with brick fronts, except for the ends. The 2 end buildings, 109 to 111, are higher, and they tended to be a little bit different from the row. They stood out because of their slightly more height. And they were joined internally from most of the 20th century. Today, the storefronts are not historic at all, except for one cast iron column, which is being kept. And they're kind of generic, with a unified non-historic wood cornice and aluminum storefronts. It kind of has a certain shopping mall look to it, rather than a row of 19th century buildings with individual storefronts. This reflects the 1996 master plan. Our approach is to take them back to a more historic appearance with details and material more appropriate to 19th century buildings. They'll be treated as individuals as we're sure they were in the earlier 19th century. Norman Cox is going to come and talk about the master plan modification and the design.
Good afternoon, everyone. Norman Cox, Union Street. The drawing you have in front of you is a drawing of existing conditions that reflect the master plan. The current master plan for the properties is woefully inadequate and outdated. It doesn't provide for the storefronts of appropriate character for the district, and in our opinion,
To Americans? That's the tens of thousands of Americans.
You see in suburban strip shop. Reviewing the historic photos, we were impressed by the 1922 image. It shows varied storefronts which clearly signal the individual buildings and the tenancies. However, the storefronts, sign ban and cornice were made more uniform just a few years later, as seen in the 1930s. In our opinion, this was not an improvement because it lessened the intimacy and the variety of the street scene. Interestingly, the homogenizing effect of the uniform cornice was offset by the presence of large projecting signs in office. Our master plan proposal seeks to restore the general character of the 1920s condition by providing for more individualized storefronts and signage for each of the buildings. The individuality is achieved by allowing variation in color, configuration of the show window, and profiles of the floors. Breaking the storefront cornice exposes the brick flanking storefronts, which helps connect the building visually to the front and provides an alternation of mass and transparency. At the same time, the consistent use of architecture
Okay, I'm gonna go back and look at this.
of 101, Weston. From conditions. Existing and proposed. The transom windows that you see in this image are actually opaque because the brick wall, there's a brick wall behind it. Steel beam was installed at some point in the past 23 years, which is too low to allow for real transom. You can see that beam in this section. 103. Oh, sorry. 3 West 10th Street. Existing condition. Existing and proposed. And rendered view of in this image, we're showing a slightly different storefront, one large panel of glass, and kind of a projecting cantilever bay. (105) West 10th Street. Existing condition. Existing and proposed. And here we're showing two alternatives for the storefront, one with the door on the right, as most of them currently are, and an alternative with the door in the center. And in this building, we would be able to do a clear transom. This is the group 107 through 111. 107 is actually a separate building than 109, 111. And although the building has been combined on the second and third floors, it's all one tenancy. The ground floor is still two separate tenancies. Proposed elevation and rendered view. One interesting thing here is the difference in the window pattern. Although it's now one property, one tax lot, and the buildings are joined on the second and third floors. The 109, 111 building still maintains a sense of independence because of its high front wall. And an alternate elevation with a pair of double doors. For signage, we are proposing that signage would be composed of either pin-mounted letters or letters mounted directly to the signage band on the storefront cornice, and that all lettering would fall within the rules landmarks, so that no special approval would be necessary. No lighting is proposed as part of the submission. That is the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have questions on this proposal? No. Yes, Commissioner Lutfi.
Which is, so the residential entrances are, I'm just gonna do this by fake names of the shop. Under, New Frame Shop, it's to the far right, is that correct?
Correct.
Where, is there residential above the hair studio?
No. Above the hair studio, the Salon Jasna, that second and third floors are connected to 109, 111, building to the left.
Okay.
So the entrance to that residential is the green door directly to the right.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because it was a little bit of a visual, seemed like something was missing. And then that, oh no, because I got it complete.
Okay.
All right, other questions? Yes, Commissioner Holford Smith.
So in this image, each of the storefronts is a different color, and that is the intention?
The colors are shown here as they're conjectural. We would expect the individual applicant for storefront to choose a color and have them. But we do like the variety of colors rather than a uniform color.
So is this going to be a new master plan?
Yes, I believe so, right?
It's a modification of the 1996 one.
And so will you have certain colors that will be part of the master plan? Or that'll be up to the tenant?
We're not presenting certain colors, but
So these are representational colors, but the intention is to allow the tenant any color? Or will there be a select?
staff provide a palette.
I think that's a good idea.
I mean, you have a good starting.
Okay.
Yeah, the building owners would be very amenable to having a palette of colors because they'll have a definite interest in colors on.
Okay. All right. Let's see if we have any public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of hands raised in the attendees list. The first we'll be hearing from is John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society, New York. The often bare-bones Greenwich Village Historic District Designation Report waxes poetic about this intersection. It describes the streetscape containing both this row of houses and their neighbor, Jefferson Market Courthouse Library, thus. Here is a case where contrast lends unusual drama, for the best of the picturesque is pitted against the simplest of our good vernacular architecture. The result is spectacular, as the very simplicity of the low buildings sets off the ornate elaboration of the higher structures to best advantage. The phrase which we found most important here when considering this proposal is the description, the simplest of our good vernacular architecture. We find that the proposal as presented is not in keeping with the essential simplicity of these buildings or the documentary evidence we have for their historic appearance. There is virtually no historic material at the storefront level to go by, and the existing master plan, though well-intentioned, has resulted in a forced blandness. What stands out to us in the documented visual history of these buildings is the unity formed by strong and continuous horizontal bands. The main cornice, the 2 rows of windows, the storefront cornice, and the more or less regular storefront bulkheads. We think the new master plan should call for a continuous storefront cornice with details closely based on those in the historic photos, and for painted wood storefronts with bulkheads of a common height. These features will provide a strong yet simple architectural structure. Within this structure, variety should be allowed, in fact encouraged, in color, types of signs, and storefront details. Finally, we note that light fixtures at the residential entrances will be required once the existing cornices where their built-in fluorescent lights are replaced. Proposed fixtures should be indicated on the drawings for review and approval. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC commends this lovely proposal. We particularly appreciate the care taken with the design and materiality here. That said, a continuous cornice appears to have been the historic configuration at this location, and we therefore ask the applicant to explore employing a continuous cornice here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I am looking through our attendees list now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, thank you. So would you like to respond to the comments we've heard?
I think that we have addressed our view of the cornice issue. We think that the buildings with their continuous roof cornices are very unified, and that the individual storefronts, which are very common in 19th century buildings, enhance the buildings, and they're really not very elaborate. So we stand by, what we've been saying all along. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any final questions on this one? All right, then we'll move to our discussion. Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Thank you. And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed, and we'll begin our discussion to amend the previous storefront master plan. Commissioner Holford Smith, would you like to take this one?
Sure. I know this block very well. I think the proposal is a big improvement on what is there now and on the master plan that's currently in place. I do like the variety that they've set up at each individual set or a couple of sets of storefronts, and how it indicates each individual building is separate. But I've been looking at the historic photos, and I do think that there is a strong continuous cornice line at the first floor that is now being removed. So I think I would prefer to see that be continued with very similar detailing to what is being proposed right now.
Okay.
But I think the difference in the detailing of the storefronts and obviously potentially different colors will definitely help make it less of a uniform and, sort of static design, but much improved over what is there now.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
I don't know. This is a tough one because if you go with the continuous line, then you're really going to force them to stick with a continuous color unless you want to just have a paint break in the middle of a continuous cornice, which might be problematic. You also have to wind up taking the lowest common denominator literally in terms of cornice height, whereas this one steps up. So I hear your point. I think that you're right. I think to a certain extent, this is a kind of faux history kind of thing. But on the other hand, I think that you look at the existing results, which are uniform, unified. It's dismal, and I don't know if it's dismal because of the nature of the execution, lettering, or the concept. I'm not sure. I don't know. This is not. I don't really have a strong feeling on it one way or the other. I do like the detailing. I think it's perfectly acceptable. But I'm a little concerned about it. I think that maybe the way to do it is to not ask for a continuous band, but to ask for a band that runs end to end.
Right.
Where you maintain the individuality, but you get rid of the brick space, right? And you kind of make them into individuals as you group them, but they have some kind of break between the buildings so that they can do what you're doing here, which I think is much more successful and truer to the history.
And I think that's true even with buildings that are in a group where they haven't had a continuous band. You do still often see the band go end to end over the residential entry. So I think right.
I think that they could
figure that out.
I agree with that approach. And also looking at old photos, they weren't all at the same height.
Yeah.
So that might also add to, the making it a little more unique.
All right. Commissioner Ginsburg?
So, and this may be what you mean by end to end. I think the leaders create breaks. So that you could have basically a continuous band except for breaking it at the leaders, which are between the buildings. And that would get some variation, but not just have it stop over those residential doors. So that's what if we did that, I could approve it.
Okay. Commissioner Chen?
I think all of us are struggling. I wish even the applicant used the word homogenize, right? I think, look how vibrant the 1920s full character this block was. Yeah, no, I agree with the sentiments.
Commissioner Lutfi?
Just to continue the question, to answer the question or give my opinion on the question that Michael raised, I think it was dismal because it was poorly executed. Nothing about it seems good. I actually think I'm in agreement with what's being said here, that what was done on the new frame shop building makes a lot of sense to me because cornice goes all the way to the end, and it incorporates. To be picky. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, now it does, because it wasn't pointed. It was pointed at Fred. So, and it incorporates the residential aspect of it. So visually, it's more cohesive. And I think, this per building idea with the cornice. We'll keep the building separate, and the lintels look so out of place. There looks like there's something disjointed or incomplete here. So I would just extend it a little more. The only issue that I think needs to be addressed is, and maybe it doesn't matter because there's brick between the shoe repair and the Kinsman. So that might just make sure that those two units are perceived separately. So that would be my
And
recommendation.
that's working on those end details, the
Mhm.
returns. Okay,
Right.
Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement in the statement that there wants to be a more continuous band there. And I think it's okay to shear it and step it as you go down the slope. Yeah, I think especially the issue is when I look at the corner, because it's a corner building that's quite dramatic and it doesn't complete itself when it turns the corner. But yeah.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Master?
Yes, I think it's a big improvement from what was there before. And I agree with Commissioner Goldblum and Commissioner Ginsburg in their solution to the cornice.
And Commissioner Chapin?
I think it's good to actually go away from the continuous cornice and have individual cornices. And I think that the way the doors are treated right now, the residential doors, it doesn't work and they should be covered with a cornice. I actually thought just have each of them covered with an extension of the cornice. It wouldn't be as balanced as going from end to end per building, so to speak. I'd be okay with not having the cornice run all the way across the single building, actually, and have some break in it. If that could be done in an attractive way. Even at the last building, I guess, then you wouldn't have brick on one side, so it might be awkward looking. Though the one just before that, you would have breaks in the brick if you didn't extend the cornice all the way across. But anyway, I agree with the individualized cornices, so to speak. And, I'll support what the majority thinks about the whether it extends entirely across the building, which I think it could have a little break there too, from my point of view. But I think these individualized cornices are working better. And color can be used to distinguish the individual premises, and also there'll be some signage on the window or whatever anyway, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think where we are is we'll make it, we can make and vote to approve it with the modification that they extend the width or length of the cornices and work with staff on the details of the returns and the exact length, maybe just sort of figuring out that right length where you don't have a leader to break it, and can include the stepping of the height as well. So can you make that motion? And thanks.
In the matter of LPC 23-11959, 101 to 111 West 10th Street, AKA 445 6th Avenue in the Greenwich Village Historic District. A row of 6 houses built in 1836. The application is to modify a storefront and signage master plan approved under Certificate of Appropriateness 96-0125. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich Village Historic District. I further note that a master plan for storefront and signage installation was approved under Certificate of Appropriateness 96-0125, but was never fully implemented. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the proposed replacement of existing infill and signage installed under the commission-approved storefront
and signage master plan from 1996 will not eliminate significant historic fabric at the storefronts facing West 10th Street. That the design, configuration, materials, and details of the proposed storefront infill, featuring painted wood window displays, transoms, and panel doors and bulkheads on a stone curb and storefront cornices, will be based on historic documentation found at these buildings and will return these storefronts closer to their original appearance. That the single extant historic cast iron pier will be retained and incorporated into the proposed storefront design. That the proposed options for signage, consisting of either flat or dimensional, individual painted metal or plastic pin-mounted letters attached to a sign band at the fascia of the storefront cornices, will recall traditional types of signage found on buildings of this age, style, and type. That the proposed changes to the master plan will continue to provide a unified and comprehensive treatment of storefront infill, entrances, and signage at the building space. And that the variety of storefront configurations will enhance the small-scale commercial character of the building's streetscape in the Greenwich Village Historic District. However, I find that the presence of cast stone lintels above the residential entrances is not based on historic photos or physical evidence. Therefore, I recommend that the cornices at each building be installed across the entire length of the storefront, including the building entrances, and working with staff to detail the way the cornices end at each junction between them, and that they don't necessarily have to be the same height. They could step with the height of the storefronts.
Thanks. And Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
Right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu, Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move to the next item.
Next item, number 7, 924 Broadway, will also be read into the record, and we will skip over to item if there is anyone here, either in person or remotely, that would like to testify, we can take your testimony now. Otherwise, it will be presented on a future agenda when we'll open the hearing and take testimony then. Anybody here? John Graham has his hand up.
John Graham, if you would like to testify now, or if you would like to testify when we bring it back to a future hearing date, you can do so then as well. John Graham, the choice is yours. You could testify now on that item or wait until we bring it back.
I would like to testify now.
Okay. So I will promote you to okay. And John Graham, just to clarify, we will not be presenting it now. We will be bringing it back to a future hearing.
Yes, I understand.
Okay. Okay, so I will be promoting you to panelist.
Caroline, maybe you should read the whole entry into the record then now.
All right.
We were going to read them all in at the end. But
Sure.
do this one now.
For docket number 24-05350, 924 Broadway in the Ladies Mile Historic District, Borough of Manhattan, Block 850, Lot 14, an application for a certificate of appropriateness, a mid-20th century commercial style building converted from 2 row houses originally built in 1854 and later altered multiple times in the first half of the 20th century. The application is to legalize the installation of metal windows in noncompliance with permit for minor work 094532.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. The phrase, "first, do no harm," is commonly attributed to the Hippocratic Oath. The Victorian Society sincerely wishes it could be drafted into the rules of the Landmarks Preservation Commission. We also wish that all building owners are required to take that oath before starting renovations. 924 Broadway is not one of the buildings which inspired the designation of the Ladies Mile Historic District. However, the regular window pattern in place on the upper floors since at least the 1930s, visible in the tax photo on LPC 2, gave it unity. It looked like a facade which was designed with some thought. The 2009 window permit, written by a staff member who's now on the board of the VSNY, maintained that regularity and the unity it provided. The windows, as installed, throw out that regularity. The unity of the building has been lost. What was once a simple background building now has the jarring appearance of a collection of parts quickly thrown together. We strongly urge the Commission to deny this proposal and to require the applicant to install replacement windows which conform to the 2009 permit. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, John Graham, for your testimony.
All right, and we'll need a motion now to close the hearing. So Commissioner Holford Smith, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing for item number 7 is closed. We will be, at the end of the day, reading it into the record again, and we will be presenting it on a future agenda when we will open up the hearing and take, we'll have a presentation and we'll take any additional testimony.
All right, so now we're on item number 8. It's docket number 2406030, 218 West 57th Street, the Society House of the American Society of Civil Engineers, an individual landmark, Borough of Manhattan, Block 1028, Lot 42. It's a C of A French Renaissance Revival style club building designed by Cyrus L.W. Eidlitz and built in 1896 to 97, with alterations in 1905 through 16 by Cyrus Eidlitz and Andrew C. Mackenzie, and in 1918 by Andrew W. Brunner. The application is to enlarge the existing elevator bulkhead, install a painted wall sign, modify the storefront display windows, and install illuminated signage.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Cal Stackelberg, Higgins, Grace Barth and Partners. So a little also project, no problem. Happy to do it. Understood. Terrific. Thank you. So we're pleased to be here. There are two components that are sort of parsed out as part of that overall scope of work. There's a group of base building work that's being undertaken at the building, as Caroline described, largely for vertical circulation to extend an existing elevator to allow for access to the building's roof. And then separately, and that work is really being undertaken by the building's landlord, the base building scope, and separately, there's a new theatrical use for the building, which we'll talk about more in detail, which includes the introduction of signage, the introduction of vitrines behind the storefront windows, and a few other ancillary changes, including repainting the existing painted wall sign. As I mentioned, there are two component parts. There's a landlord scope and a tenant scope. The project team is here today. We've been working together. On the ownership side is Paul Madden from Brookfield Properties is here, and Asher Young from the tenant. And the tenant for this property, which, as you'll see, has this remarkable history of adaptive use, will be a new immersive theater experience with Phantom of the Opera, which you may know closed in April of last year. It will actually be relocating to this location in a different form and opening next year is the goal. And so Asher Young from the production company is here, and the design team, Eric Barassa and James Briand from Superette is here as well. We're all working together on this project. Sorry for the long preamble. Just turning to the building on the south side of 57th Street. This is the Society House of the American Society of Civil Engineers. South side of 57th between Broadway and 7th Avenue, an individual landmark. And you can see it's located directly west of the Argonaut, another individual landmark. And directly to the east, as you can see in the photograph, is an open plaza that was created in around 1970 when 888 7th Avenue was constructed. So you have this somewhat ahistorical condition with this whole side elevation that is exposed. And when Lee's art shop was in the building from about the 1970s to just after 2000, they had installed this wall sign, which we intend to reactivate as part of the project with signage directly tied to the production. An overall existing and proposed axonometric, just to highlight the areas of work at the ground floor, working with the existing storefronts, introducing signage at the 3 entries here, here, and here. At the storefronts, inserting vitrines, which we'll show you some details on at the storefronts with curtains, and reactivating the wall sign that exists on the east elevation, raising the existing elevator bulkhead to allow for access onto the roof. The roof includes a high roof level here and a low roof, both of which will be used as part of the theater experience. The audience and the actors will move through the building as part of this overall experience. Railings where there are none, rooftop mechanicals and things are all being handled directly with the staff. Flipping around and looking at the back, again, you can see the extended elevator bulkhead. This bulkhead, this elevator currently provides access through the building, obviously, and historically even provided access to this low roof that's been decommissioned and will be reopened. And you can see the way this low roof will be used for part of the theater experience and the high roof as well. A bit of historical background for the building. Originally as a society house, completed in 1897, designed by Cyrus Eidlitz. Owing to its success, the building was expanded 2 bays to the west, also designed by Eidlitz, that opened in 1906. But by 1918, the building had already begun its sort of transformation into other uses, and tying into the location near Automobile Row. By 1918, the property was being used by the Ajax Rubber Company as a tire showroom. So this tied directly into the car sales showrooms that existed along 57th and Broadway. And in fact, in the 1920s, the building was also then being used as an automobile showroom for Stearns and Knight. By 1930, the building, the ground floor, obviously, I'll just point out here, obviously, the base of the building was completely redone for commercial use once the transformation from the society house to commercial use. By the 1930s, the lower 2 floors were being used by Schraff's as a restaurant. And in fact, in the late 1930s, the upper floors of the building were being used for residences. And then this transformation continued into the later part of the 20th century. So Schraff's adapted the base of the building, made modifications to the storefronts and even the canopy. And then by 1970, Lee's Art Shop had occupied the building and was there at the time of designation in 2008. So this building has a really fascinating history of adaptive reuse, and we think this new theatrical use sort of fits in very nicely with this continuum of modifying the building to accommodate new uses. Some existing photos, just to give you again the context of the building on the south side of 57th Street, sort of more frontal view of the building, the open plaza, and then the views that one has from the east, particularly of that side elevation. The base of it has been stuccoed. The upper portions of the elevation are brick that has been painted and parged, and then you can see the wall sign that we intend to reactivate as part of the production. Definitely not as part of advertising. On the upper roof, just some existing photos. There's a elevator overrun bulkhead and stair bulkhead in the corner here. This is the plaza side, 57th Street, running here. You can see the height of the parapets relatively low, and then HVAC equipment that is being replaced and is not visible from the public way. The low roof, mechanical equipment, ductwork, et cetera, that's all being replaced with equipment of the same size or smaller. And then the rear extension of that addition running along here, along the west side of the property. And this low roof will also be used for the theatrical purposes for the experience. An existing elevation on the left and a proposed elevation on the right, just calling out again the areas of work at the base. There are currently three entries on the outer east and west bays, and this central entry. We're proposing just to install panel signs, halo lit panel signs over the existing storefront infill. We'll talk more about the work that's happening in the windows. At the roof level, mechanical equipment that the staff is reviewing an extension of the elevator about 12 feet, but I will point out, while this looks very apparent over the front elevation, it is not visible across the street. It's set 40 feet back, drawing up and extruding from the existing shaftway. Flipping around on the side elevation, so this is the outline of the existing wall sign, which we intend to reanimate. We've got sort of ground rules for the wall signs, which call it out as a painted sign. It won't be a vinyl or any sort of banner. It will be hand painted. It will be tied directly to the production that's occurring inside and will not be advertising. And the idea is to basically occupy the same area as the existing sign. And you can see inside elevation the extension of the elevator, retention of the existing stair bulkhead, and you can see that setback 40 feet from the front of the building. There are also new steel egress stairs, covered egress stairs to bring people in a code compliant manner from the upper roof down to the lower roof. An existing section just showing, this is cut through the elevator shaft here, and you can see the bulkheads on that upper roof. I'll just point out this opening. As I mentioned, this shaftway historically actually provided access to the low roof. That was infilled and decommissioned, but we intend to reuse this shaft to provide accessible access onto this low roof. And it's one of the reasons why we've chosen to extend the existing bulkhead as opposed to putting in an entirely new shaft, because this shaftway already provides access to the low roof and of course can be extended up to the upper roof. In section, basically the idea is to move all the existing equipment one level up. We looked at different ways of doing that. Alula doesn't accommodate the use that's proposed for the building. And we think this is actually an appropriate way to do this, or reusing the existing infrastructure of the building. There have been modifications to the equipment to actually reduce the height. Forget the name of this part, the control beam, which runs across the upper portion of the cab. That's been actually reduced to bring the overall height down 2.5 feet. And there are other elements that sort of have we've incorporated into to make this as short as it can be. And as I said, again, based on the sight lines, there is no visibility from across the street or even from the west. It is only over that exposed side elevation. Continuing on, just to give you a sense of how the building is going to be used on this upper roof. So these are just meant to indicate sort of the position of the audience and the actors on this upper portion of this upper roof. There will be low scale theatrical elements. None of it we expect to be visible. When those are developed through the year as the production is being designed, if we determine that those are going to be tall and visible, we're going to come back to the commission, hopefully with a staff, but if necessary, we'll represent to you with any features that we think might be visible from the upper roof. But you can see sort of how this will work. The elevator will bring the audience up to the upper roof, as will the stair, and then you can see this deck and railing in this upper portion of the high roof. An existing and proposed roof plan. This is the existing roof plan here. You can see the elevator and stair here emptying out onto the roof. There'll be a small vestibule, code compliant vestibule right off of the elevator to provide access onto the low roof, and the elevator, and the stair as well be extended and enclosed here to provide this access. A new stair bringing people off the back side of the roof for code compliant circulation and egress. On the low roof, similarly, this is just, again, designed to sort of show how the base, this roof will be arranged for theatrical use, with the actors in this sort of tucked in corner and the audience facing west and north. And we've prepared, we have this existing and proposed elevation, plan of that low roof. Again, the mechanical equipment in its existing condition, a railing set inboard of that, and then this being this sort of performance space, and the elevator here providing access out onto this low roof from the existing shaft. We provided this just somewhat conjectural rendering just to show you on the low roof. This is a photograph of the view looking northwest. So you can see sort of tucked into this sort of well, the idea is to provide just scenery at the ground plane, and anything that's much taller is going to be hidden away, sort of tucked in here to provide a very atmospheric experience up on the roof, but the idea is to do it in a way that isn't visible from the public way. Some renderings just illustrating the relative visibility. This is the view on the right of all these images will be a view of the mock-up, and then on the left is the rendered view, so you can see the extension of the elevator. It is visible, but I think our thinking in this is that it really does not detract from the architectural character of the building, particularly because it's really only visible over the side elevation, this unarticulated side elevation, and not seen from the front. So we'll just move around the building. This is now on the south side of 57th Street, sort of looking through the plaza. You can see here, it'll be a masonry clad bulkhead meant to, on the east and north faces, blend with the coated masonry on the east elevation. It'll be in red brick, and it'll be tied into the red brick exposed on the south elevation. You'll see in just a moment. Longer views from 7th Avenue. Again, you're seeing it only over the side elevation, not over the front elevation. And then this is the furthest one can get away from the building. Here you can see in the key plan, it's off the east side of 7th Avenue, looking west, southwest, across 57th Street, where you can just see a wedge of the bulkhead. And then this is sort of the closest in view. You see it here, but as you move to the front of the building, that disappears. There's the plaza itself to the east of the site runs all the way through from 56th to 57th Street. You can see it here in plan. So there are views from 56th Street at the back of the building. The back of the building, the elevator shaft is exposed red brick. So our plan is to just basically run that red brick up in as seamless a way as they can to extend the elevator up in its current shaft. And then another view from 56th Street looking through that open plaza. Finally, we did include views where you cannot see the bulkhead, which we don't typically do, but we think it is relevant that from standing directly across the street, because of that 40-foot setback, you do not see the increased elevation of the bulkhead. Similarly, as you move west along 57th Street, this is a little bit closer, and these are all marked on the plan. As you move in, you're east of Broadway. Here, you do not see it, and at the farthest point you can get on Broadway, sort of this long view, you also do not see it. So we think that's significant. It's really only seen from the east of the property. Turning to the ground floor, so this is an existing condition of the base of the building. As I mentioned, obviously the base of the building, when it went from the Society House to the tire showroom, the base was significantly altered, and it has gone through a series of changes. The infill that is there today predates designation. It was installed in 2002. Designation was in 2008, and it largely remains in its condition as it was in 2002. There have been some sign panels, et cetera, installed, and temporary doors and things. This sign here is sitting in front of the Lee's Art Shop sign, which is behind that. And a few detail photos on the far east and far west bays. This sort of Muntin grid actually is over a void where there are egress doors, and then some details of that central entry. A few photos, courtesy of Google Street Views, where we could go back in time and just see what it looked like not long ago, about 5 years ago, to just show the existing conditions with the Art Shop sign, which is an internally illuminated sign right over the entry, and then the two outer bays with these recessed egress doors, which we intend to retain and reuse, and then this open Muntin gridded transom. So turning to the storefront, so there are two elements that we're looking to do because of the theatrical use throughout the building, particularly at the ground floor. We need to create a light lock at the base of the building. But what there's also interest in doing is creating these vitrines at the storefront windows, which are going to be filled with objects related to the performance, little scale models of the auditorium, and sort of things that have a visual interest for those passing along on the sidewalk, sort of at the pedestrian scale. So those are going to be situated right behind the existing storefront glass, and then we're just proposing curtains to run between the vitrines. So currently, I think when the art shop was there was not a lot of visibility into the store. I know the commission and the staff have concerns about transparency into the ground floor of the space of some of the landmark buildings. This building never really operated as a traditional retail space, but it was adapted over time, and its most recent commercial use as an art supply store, there weren't views deep into the space. So we think this is sort of consistent with the way the building has evolved. And I'll also just point out that all of this work is easily reversed. This is all infill that's happening behind the existing storefront. So there are no changes to the storefront, and all these insertions are fully reversible. Some signage at the base. Again, at the main entry, we're looking to sort of overclad that existing Lee's Art Shop sign with a sign panel, halo lit letters identifying the theater that's part of the Phantom production. And the idea is to basically create a frame around that existing box sign with detailing that recalls some of the detailing that exists on the upper floors of the building. And then the two flanking entries, again, sort of flat, simple panel signs, painted metal with halo lit letters on either side. And these will serve as sort of access points for both the audience as well as the actors and performers. Some sections cut through the various entries. This is sort of showing with the way the vitrine will sit right behind the existing storefront, and then and the signage above at the side entry, and again the signage above the main entry, and looks like washed out, but again the section through that westernmost side entry showing the sconces which are proposed flanking the main entry, replacing existing non-historic sign lighting in that location. And then there's some details illustrating the panels and the halo lit details for each of these entry bays. And then finally, a rendering, certainly a bit theatrical, but obviously unapologetically. This is illustrating the sort of the full scope at the base of the building, the signage at the three entry bays, these vitrines set behind the existing storefront glazing, and the curtains set within each one. And then upper facade cleaned, it's just basically reflecting ambient lighting on the street, the reactivated painted wall sign that's in the existing location, and then the extension of the elevator bulkhead. Those are the elements that are visible in this location. I think I'll just repeat the fact that this building has seen a remarkable range of uses since its original completion in the 1890s, and we think this is a sympathetic and sensitive new use for this building that continues to have many lives, and we're excited to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Chu.
At the main facade, there's a new large signage at the theater opera where you're coming in. Was it ever explored to put a marquee? Something that have a cover?
We did. The zoning limits the projection off the building to.
You couldn't get in.
It was like a foot or two. We couldn't get back to that Schrafft's marquee. We certainly.
The one that was in the 30s, yeah.
Or even something a little shallower. The zoning is very limiting on how far you can project off the building.
And does there exist the archway behind that signage and
the base of the building? Let me get back to the photographs. The base of the building has been.
I can see it turning right on the corner of the.
Yeah, it's unclear if it's. Let me actually go back to the historic. Historically, in those historic photos, you can see the base of the building was sort of treated with consistent arched openings. Sorry, one more.
Yeah.
So you can see more or less. I mean, this has been modified as well, but the base of the building has been sort of parged and painted. But there's no decorative enfrainment at that entry. It was all sort of consistently done with these just simple curved corners. But as you'll see, let me see if I can get back to the existing photos quickly. The stucco is kind of beginning to peel off, and it is not just simply painted masonry at the base of the building. It's all been worked over quite a bit. Okay. Sorry. Maybe you can see it.
You can see it there.
In here, the cracking and sort of peeling of the coatings. There's a seam here. And what you see in the photograph is not really carved stone. It's actually incised stucco. Yeah.
All right. And the proposal is to reuse that armature for the new signage.
Right.
Okay. All right. Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Lutfi.
we've been talking about that. The goal here really is to do something that imagine sort of like an umbrella, but a big umbrella that covers the audience and it comes down. So it's not a permanent structure because it doesn't need to be there most of the time. You know, on a day when it's raining, there needs to be some simple post and fabric covering. So what we're talking about is maybe putting sleeves into the deck that you can set a post into, but it will not be a permanent structure and it will only be there when it's raining.
And it's not so high up that there will be a problem with wind loads.
If there are, they won't put them up. I mean,
Yeah.
It's going to be, let me get to this axon.
You have to
Yeah.
state your name for the record.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Well, and
You have to
come up?
stand
Yeah.
up.
just say it into the microphone for the Zoom viewers.
Eric Barassa, architect of record with Studio Superette. On the record, zoning does not permit enclosed use on this roof. And we don't foresee that becoming a part of the zoning resolution. So we're planning for.
Great. And did you say that the sign on the side of the building is going to be used to promote what's within? Have you said that?
Right. It will be tied to the production
It will
itself.
be.
Exclusively.
Okay. And then in terms of the facade at the base of the building, could you tell us a little more about the vitrines, and then what is the material surrounding them? Like, how are these?
Right.
And then just another question to add to that is, so the two entranceways for tickets, and I forget what the other one was for, but are they lit or are they just?
I'll take your questions in reverse. They'll be, so the signs are just halo lit signs above, but they're recessed lighting currently in those openings on the ends. So we're just going to replace the existing fixtures. So there will be lighting, but no new lighting and no bright lighting for sure.
Got it.
And then just to address your question about the vitrines, the idea, they're called out as painted plywood. The idea is that you don't really see the vitrine, that it's a box in which is an object or a model of the auditorium, but it's finished on the inside. It's not gonna read as painted plywood, but it'll be finished. So the portion that you actually see, you're seeing this display, almost like a jewelry shop, where it's going to be beautifully finished on the inside where the object is or the model is. And then beyond that, what you see looking straight on is just sort of a theatrical curtain within the window. And all of this is, remember, it's happening on the back side of the glass. So there's no change to the storefront. This is just sort of slid in from the back. So the finished quality of what you see will be of quality.
Got it. Thank you.
And it'll be curtains and then the content
The
of the
object,
vitrine.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Right, let's see if we have public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting there isn't, I'll turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of hands raised for this item. The first we'll be hearing from is John Graham from the Victorian Society of New York. John Graham, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society of New York. The best we can say for this proposal is that it isn't destructive to any of the significant historic features of this individual landmark. The raising of the elevator bulkhead will be very visible, but the existing context renders this a relatively unimportant change. We wish that a more restorative approach were being taken with the ground floor of the front facade. The oversized former Lee sign should come down. The proposed ornamental cladding helps, but doesn't really solve the problem. The sign is too big and ill-proportioned. Applying solid sign boxes to the open work grid at the side entrances, or in place of the grid, it isn't clear which, is also a bad idea. The grid appears to be recalling the condition during the Schraff's occupancy circa 1930. it should remain open with another type of sign devised that better fits the architecture. Repeating the mistake of the Lee's Art sign slapped on top of architectural features is not the right approach. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC supports this application as proposed and commends the applicant on a clear presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised on this item, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 5 recommends approval. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, so I'd like to ask if you would like to respond to the comments.
It's always nice when someone acknowledges a clear presentation. We try collectively. I think, I want to just address John's comments about signage. I think what's interesting when you look at the historic photos, and I can go back to them, but as the building has sort of taken on more of a commercial use, the base of the building is really distinct from the upper floors, and it has had sort of an increasing amount of signage. And I think the building still, obviously, was recognized by landmarks as sort of worthy of individual listing. It has these sort of two qualities. It has this sort of commercial base and this really richly detailed upper portion of the facade. And I think the building can take signage at the ground floor. I think the context is also significant to note. Obviously, this is not a historic district, it's an individual landmark, but you have the Brooklyn Diner directly on the other side of the plaza on the south side, and Nordstrom's across the street. And this is an active crosstown street. And I think in this context, some signage is acceptable and could be, and the building can take it. And I think it speaks to the sort of changing commercial use of the building over the years. So I'll leave it.
Okay. Yes, and we have one more question at least. Commissioner Halford-Smith?
Yes, I had a question about the painted wall sign. Does that comply with the current rules for painted wall signs in terms of percentage of facade coverage?
I think we've looked at that. Do we?
I mean,
It looks much larger.
The zoning?
The zoning and, yeah.
Studio Superette Architect of Record. To date, we know that we are not changing the proportions of the existing sign. It is as is in size, both width and height. We are proposing moving it back slightly off the street as it was previously recommended by staff. That's what I can say about it.
Okay, so you don't know if it complies with zoning?
Not to this date.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, or if they would consider repainting an existing sign as vested in some way.
And of course,
Okay.
everything we do will be compliant, so we will make sure we look at that closely.
All right, any other final questions? Okay, let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. And so we have sort of three areas of work. We have the extension of the elevator bulkhead, which is visible over the side facade and from the back in the context of the rear facade, but not visible directly across the street or from the the west, I believe. And then we have the painted wall sign, which will be painted to reflect whatever the show is, the production is inside, and repainted to reflect the productions. And then finally, at the storefront level, they want to reuse the existing sign armature, which was there at the time of designation, to do new halo lit signage, and then new lighting and vitrines with curtains at the storefronts. So we'll begin our discussion. And first, I do want to just say that it is exciting to see a new use go into this building. And we thank you for presenting the historic evolution of the building and the different waves of uses, which also resulted in changes to the facade. And I'm, I think it's great that there is a new potential use for this building and this building can accommodate that. So with that as the context, we'll begin. Commissioner Lutfi, would you like to start?
I have to say I have to agree that it is
very exciting that this beautiful building is going to be put back to use. To be completely honest, until this moment, I have been mourning the loss of Lee's. That store was so amazing on so many levels. This is a really exciting project. I mean, because I feel like because this beautiful building has been vacant for a long time now, remarkably, because it is so architecturally significant and it is a sizable, space that could be used for a lot of different things. It's so wonderful that that's finally going to be put to a very interesting use, and entertainment seems like a wonderful thought. So I think I'm just going to go through the three areas and start with the elevator bulkhead. I think it's fine, actually, because it mostly is not visible, definitely not from the front, and the other visibility is really not that significant. The painted wall sign, if you're going to be conforming with all of the rules and regulations, I'm actually really happy to see it be put to a use that is connected to what's going on inside this space, instead of just some random, commercial usage that we normally deal with. So it just seems like a perfect application, and in a way, what a gift for you, because you didn't have to come to us about it. And since it's not, I also thought that it would be nice if you could have a little marquee, but I think what you did with this existing signage area is create something that evokes it. And it's visible enough and lit enough, yet understated enough that I think it doesn't detract from the building in any way. And likewise, I feel the same way about the two entrances. I do think, because applicants always come to us with, materials and more details on things they're going to be doing, I think it would be terrific if you could work with staff on some of the details that are connected to the base of the building, with the storefronts and with the signage, and just to make sure that you are crossing every T and dotting every I. It's a really great project.
Right. Thank you. Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, I also think it's a great adaptive reuse building, and always exciting to see theaters be able to take on some of these older buildings that haven't been utilized for their role. It's a fantastic project. I think that overall, I don't really have serious issues. My only comment that I'd like the applicant to work with staff on is the signage. I just feel that, as I had stated earlier, that the Lee sign, and I understand the point that's being made about the separation of the streetscape from the upper building, and I read that in the initial design. I read that in the way it's going to be used, but I feel like the sign actually hurts that by pushing up to the underside of the second floor. Ideally, I'd like to see that archway retained, and there's still quite a bit of height left on that sign. I don't doubt that you could still do something exciting and draw the eye there, but I think that may even give you more liberty to make something eye-catching if you stay within the archway. Otherwise, I feel like it's being put over the historic facade. And the two signs on the ends, again, just work with staff a little bit. My instinct would have been to make something a little less solid, just because that is such a clearly glazed area, and you're going to put curtains down at the bottom. So that's it. I think the rest of it I think is appropriate.
Okay. Commissioner Holford Smith?
Yeah, I agree with my fellow commissioners. I really don't have anything else to add. I think the elevator bulkhead is appropriate. I'm really happy to see the adaptive reuse of it. I guess my biggest concern had been the painted wall sign. So as long as that complies with zoning, and I think that they work with staff on the other signage, then
Okay.
find it
I mean,
acceptable.
I do want to just, the sign that's there, the armature that's there is vested. So I think we can encourage them to look at something that is smaller, but I think can't compel them to remove it. I guess we can comment on what it is they're now attaching to it. So that's maybe a way to think about it. Okay. Commissioner Goldblum?
Yeah, I think that the elevator tower and work on the roof is fine. I think that it's interesting. It's an example of vesting in all of its glory. And it's interesting at the DOB, when you change the use, you lose all that, or you lose much of it. You don't lose all of it. And here, there might be some wisdom to thinking about that as a future policy change. I think that the sign over the door is grossly too big, and maybe we can't make it smaller, but I certainly don't think that the proposal as shown, which seems to, I don't know, it just seems like it's too big. I don't know. It certainly seems like the wrong size, and the applique, that picture frame seems rather make it worse. I also worry about the curtain thing. The first thing I thought when I saw it was dead flies on the floor in between the glass and the curtain, and how the faded curtains. It's like it just doesn't seem like it seems like it doesn't seem like the kind of thing you would see on an active retail street. And I think the transoms and using that low platform roof is a good idea. Let's light in that way. I just think that it should be a more normal kind of shadow box like we see all the time on storefronts, where it's set back and it's decorated in a normal way. The curtains just seems like, I don't know, it's like a fortune teller or something. It just has it feels very closed and non-urban, non-kind to me. Maybe they should put car tires back in the windows or something. I don't know. I'm not
Okay.
okay with that.
All right, Commissioner Ginsburg?
First, I worked near there for a number of years and will remember Lee's fondly, spending a fair amount of time in there. In general, the elevator bulkhead's fine. From what I understand, although maybe refined a bit, the size of the signage is grandfathered, so, and the curtains don't really bother me, so I'll agree with most of my other commissioners.
Okay.
I think this is approvable.
All right, Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I agree with the sentiment that this is a good adaptive reuse, much better than the auto tire shop. I'm glad they're not bringing that back. But I just like I lament the loss of the field. So to me, I have less problem with the way it is, especially when it can be vested, which is that to me this is more like of a theater, and so that in that context, I have far less problem with it.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I, Commissioner Ludwig, remember this really wonderful art store that I used to go to a lot, and I've been missing it for a while. So, but I think this is a terrific reuse, and I like the way they were trying to use the theatrical elements to kind of pull things together. And I think the wall sign works with that. I like the use of the curtains because it's like a little shadow box within a curtain. So you're like seeing a scene of the theater. That is the idea I think they've got there. And if there is a sense that it's, they could use, I suppose, larger boxes or something if it seems like it's too enclosed. Similar to, after all, when you see Fifth Avenue windows, you have individual, during the holiday season, there's you're using a window as a scene. So they're trying to do a set of scenes. And I thought the way they sort of tied that all together works very nicely. As far as the sign over the entrance, I think it's not obscuring anything, any historic decoration. As far as I understand, I don't think there's anything there anymore to obscure. So, and besides, I think you said that that particular element is grandfathered. As far as the bulkhead, I think that, as others have said, it's in a context where it's really not going to be that noticeable, although it is quite large, and I don't think it will appear inappropriate in any way. So, I think it's a great adaptive reuse, and excited to see how it comes out. So I can approve it as presented, though I agree with others that because of the importance of how the signage is going to look on the ground floor, that they should work with the staff on the details of how it's exactly going to look to try to refine it.
Okay. And Commissioner Master.
Yeah, a very exciting project. Can't wait to see how it turns out. I love the way that they're using the roof as well in terms of an audience experience. I'm 100% in agreement with Commissioner Lutfi. I think the painted wall sign is fine, given that it's going to correspond with what's happening in the theater. I think the elevator bulkhead is fine. I'm actually okay with the curtains. I do think that it relates to the theater, and it's also temporary. And I think that, like the other commissioners, they can refine some of the storefront and display details with staff.
Okay. All right. So I know there are some different opinions about the curtains, but I think we have enough to support this proposal as is, but with the condition that they continue to work with the staff on the details of the sign. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. In the matter, of docket 24-06030, 218 West 57th Street, Society House of the American Society of Civil Engineers, individual landmark. A French Renaissance Revival style club building designed by Cyrus L.W. Idlewitz and built in 1896-97 with alterations in 1905-16 by Cyrus L.W. Idlitz and Andrew C. McKenzie, and in 1918 by Arnold W. Brunner. The application is to enlarge the existing elevator bulkhead, install a painted wall sign, modify the storefront display windows, and install illuminated signage. I recommend approval with finding that the proposed work will not eliminate any significant architectural or historic features, that the proposed elevator bulkhead extension, stairs, railings, various mechanical equipment will not be visible from directly across the street over the front facade and will only be seen from the neighboring empty lot to the west over an undesigned secondary facade and from West 56th Street against the backdrop of taller buildings with only incidental visibility against empty sky in conjunction with existing ductwork and other utilitarian elements. That the proposed painted accessory sign at the secondary east facade will be in keeping with the historic precedent for signage at that location and will be directly connected to the performance taking place in the building only, and will not be a rotating advertising sign. That the painted sign will be set back from the front facade and below the parapet with adequate space surrounding the image so that it will not overwhelm the historic features of the primary facade. That the installation of 2 sign panels with halo-lit lettering on the metal structure over the 2 side entrances and a new panel with halo-lit lettering on top of the non-historic existing sign panel at the main entrance will not obscure any significant historic features, and the scale of the signs will not overwhelm the facade. That adding a decorative frame to the largest sign panel will call attention to this bay as the primary entrance without competing with any historic features. That the presence of partitions behind the show windows will be obscured by three-dimensional display vitrines surrounded by curtains and will maintain a level of transparency and interest that supports the liveliness of the streetscape. That the installation of a frame poster on the west side of the primary facade will match the one installed on the opposite side of the storefront, and that the work will support the adaptive reuse of the building as a theater. However, the signage package and window displays are not fully detailed, so I recommend that the applicant work very closely with staff to refine the details of the signs and window displays.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin, Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu, Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
Right, that's great. And now we're going to actually go back to make up an item that
We're
we.
going back to an item that we said we were going to skip and read into the record, and that is item number 5. And that is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 2404610, 57 to 59 Christopher Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District, Borough of Manhattan, Block 610, Lot 1, 2 Italianate-style row houses built in 1853 and altered in the early 20th century. The application is to construct rooftop additions and reconstruct rear facades.
Hey, Commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing and will be presenting remotely. Richard, I'm giving you control of the presentation. You just need to click on your screen.
Okay. And you can hear me okay?
We can hear you now, but if you can click on your screen where you see the presentation, you can advance
Yes.
slides using your arrow keys or your mouse.
Okay, wonderful.
For the record, you may begin.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate everyone's time. I'm Richard Untitled, Design Director at EDG on behalf of the client SW Management at 5759 Christopher Street. These two buildings are part of the larger grouping of buildings along this block, which our client owns, and specifically 57 and 59. We're looking to build some rooftop additions on the top of the buildings here. I'll just give a little context. Buildings were built in 1853 in the Italianate style. And these are in the village right at Christopher Street, right across from the park. Just a little map there, and you can see that the two buildings are at the corner here beside the triangular shape bounded by the colored box. So it's these two buildings here that you see on the left image, the one with the lighter stucco and the one beside it, 59 being the one on the left, 57 being the one on the right. And then the right image is just the rear on 7th Avenue South. And just some historical photos. This is an image on the left from 1933 and on the right from the 80s, 84 specifically. Again, looking from 7th Avenue on the left and then on Christopher Street on the right. And then some other images also from 7th Avenue South. This is before 61 Christopher at the corner was built. And so really the impetus for this was really because of a large fire that occurred back in 2022, creating a lot of damage to the rooftop and throughout the building on both of these adjacent properties. And so we started to look at possibilities and options to rebuild these properties. And largely looking at how the space was configured. There was a sort of crawl space in the front and an apartment in the back, but severe damage for all the joists and roofing in both buildings, really. And I'll just jump to this section here. You can see on the left here, this is the existing building. And you can see the crawl space at the front with the upper portion in the back that has the full height headroom. So all of this was really damaged in the fire. And so we thought when we're rebuilding this to look at an opportunity to build out the front portion at the crawl space. And in so doing, creating a sort of contiguous apartment for that upper floor. And as you can see on the right, this is the proposal. And when we are rebuilding the structure, that whole assembly has a certain thickness, and then you have insulation and so forth, and then the roofing pavers and so forth. It necessitated building the bulkhead up a little bit, and with that, rather than coming to the front with a point of discharge, we redirected that backwards towards the north portion so that the bulkhead would exit out at the roof further back on the north-hand side. And then that would also create allow us to actually slope that bulkhead so there wouldn't be as much. You can see on the left, it's more blunt. Here, we're actually sloping in the opposite direction. So the viewing cone is sort of in line with that. And then the front portion, this is really hearkening back to typology in the Village of the Artist Loft and initial proposals with CB2 and taking some of their feedback, really kind of looking at, the appropriateness of what should really be built here, and really sort of taking heed to that and looking at this and working with the LPC team to really kind of shape this into something that we felt sort of worked for this neighborhood. And so we created a sort of 70-degree angle there at the front, much like the old tenement artist lofts at the top floor. And I'll get more into that a little bit later as well. But here you can see on the right, we're creating a little bit more volume, the space for that front bedroom, and there's a little bit of a setback there from the front cornice. This is just a composite image of the two, so you can see the colored line below is the existing, and then the proposed laid over top. And then this is 59 Christopher, so this is closer now to 7th Avenue South. And so the bulkhead is really remaining here, but it's that front portion that really mimics what's happening on 57. And so between the two, largely the configuration is the same both across 57 and 59. We'll see that later in imagery as well. And there's a composite image of that as well. And then this is a front elevation of the existing on the left, and then the proposed on the right. And so you can see the bulkhead on the right is sort of in line with 59's bulkhead. So 57 on the right is sort of in line with 59 on the left. And then this is the rear. Because we're raising the structure a little bit to reach the upper roof, the rear parapet wall needs to come up a little bit, and that's just showing this in this image that part of the wall comes up another 1.5 feet on the rear. There's some sightline studies. So again, this is 57 across the street at the fence line at the park, looking up. This is you see the shape of the front angled glazing, and then the sloped bulkhead above that. And then this is 59. And these are some mock-up images. So the one on the left is sort of looking over the park. We constructed this with just the 2x4 and the mesh and so forth, and then the yellow tape that you see at the top. And so this 2x4 and orange mesh really shows this slope of that glazing. And so the front part kicks up, and that's where the operable windows would be, and then the glazing raking across at a diagonal. Now, what you're seeing in the foreground on the image on the right, that enclosure there, and can you see my cursor, the hand moving?
Yes.
That's just indicating an enclosure around to keep the bulkhead watertight while things are underway at the roof. What's really to take into consideration, I'm going to show you a composite image next, is just this upper line of that's where the top guardrail would be. And then this is the back portion of that bulkhead. So in composite, when you see it here, this isn't actually there. The bulkhead line is very much in line with the guardrail back here. And then what you see popping up back there is the upper part of the angled portion of the bulkhead where you'd come out of. This part here is just that weather-tight enclosure. And so this is a key plan of just the sightline views that we did around the neighborhood to see what you can actually see on the roof of 57 and 59. So we've got 10 views that we've set up to run through here. And you can see what we wanted to do is actually set the first view, not at that fence line, which is typical across the street. We wanted to put it deeper into the park because naturally that's where people would be in this area. And the image in the upper right is a blow up of the mock-up. And so really what you're seeing there would just be the top of that guardrail. And the guardrail, and I'm going to speak to that a little bit later on a slide later on, is a mesh with just a top rail and verticals. So really, it's just going to assert itself as a top rail and some posts, but you wouldn't actually see the bulkhead in this image on 57. 59s you would see up on the left here, but you would not actually see 57s. This is another view just down the street, also at the park, just further east. And again, from this particular vantage point, you don't see anything at the roof. Then jumping a little further down the block at the apex of the park, you're seeing a little bit at the top of the guardrail and a touch of that bulkhead just in the back. This is the bulkhead of the building just to the east, which is 55. So that's not it. It's just this tiny piece here. So what you're seeing is this little piece of railing and then that portion of guardrail. Again, now this is just across the street by the park, showing what you see in terms of visibility. And then again, jumping now over to 7th Avenue South, right at the front of the park. You're really not seeing anything in terms of visibility at the roof, the mock-up. Now, if you go a little further south, you start to see a little bit of that. And again, this is that enclosure that's just the weather-tight enclosure for the bulkhead. Going back to the image I showed earlier, I just want to stress that it's actually pushed much further back in an angle, so you wouldn't actually end up seeing anything here. You'd really just largely see the railing there in this particular image. Then moving a little further south, here, a lot of this is going to be obscured by foliage for 7-8 months of the year, but we wanted to include this in a winter image that you can kind of start to see a little bit on 59. But for the most part, the lion's share of the year, you would remain obscured from vision. And then jumping here a little bit further down. Now this is a blow up further down the street quite a bit. And what you're seeing here is a little bit at the top again of that guardrail. And this is just on the 57 side. This is the bulkhead. You can see a little bit popping up of where you would see the bulkhead angling up. And then jumping to position 10, this is further up on 7th Avenue South of the rear. This was the portion of wall that we're talking about raising up to accommodate the new height of where we would discharge at the roof. And I'm just going to run through the floor plans. So this is that front portion of the bedroom where the previous crawl space was, is now a usable bedroom. And then these are the comparisons between 59 on the left, 57 on the right. And so here you can see the little setback roof and the glazing portion. And then this is the bulkhead of 57. So this is the point of discharge at that roof, and really looking to align these bulkheads here, and keeping the FDNY path. This area back here is reserved for all the mechanical equipment. A lot of the split units will live back here, and we just felt that moving any sort of discharge point further back and angling that back would be more advantageous. And then this is just an overall roof plan. And now this is just speaking to the palette of materials, and you'll see it in a rendering shortly as well. The bulkheads would largely be clad in a corrugated metal, which was approved under a previous docket, and we would carry that on 55, and we would carry that same language and materials onto 57 and 59 in a bronze color. And the panels themselves, and I'll speak to that in the rendering as well, at the front portion where it angles, the metal panels on the sides would also be of a bronze, but a flat plate bronze. And then the guardrails would really be just the vertical posts and then a horizontal with the bottom rail. But the interstice at the mesh would just be like a Jacob's wire. So largely it ends up just disappearing against the sky. We didn't want to sort of go the route of heavy pickets or anything like that, to keep it very light in terms of what you do see is something visible. And this is just a little blow up detail of this position up here. And so this is at the top end of that angling roof condition. And so this would be a metal panel, it flattens out and then steps back, and then you'd have this guardrail that we're speaking of right here. So there would only be a little over half portion of this visible. And then I'm just going to jump to some precedent buildings in and around the neighborhood 96, 98 Grove Street with a similar sort of pop-ups on the roof that you can see here highlighted. And then another here just up the block on 7th Avenue South. Again, you can kind of see a similar kind of condition here. And then another example, precedent at 280 West 11th Street. Now, these are brought a little bit more to the fore. You have a lot more visibility with these precedents. Ours, again, would be set back and angled much further back than these. Here's another example. Again, set quite a bit to the street, 228 West 13th Street. Again, another example, 132, 34 West 4th Street. And again, another example of 112 West 10th Street. And again, this is angled much higher than what we're proposing, but we wanted to show precedent that was similar in nature. Now I'm just going to jump to the rendering here. This is obviously floating above the street, but we really wanted to sort of show the configuration of what's happening here. And so you see the setback with a slightly angled front with operable windows there, and then the raking glass on either side through here. There'd be a reveal between the two buildings, and then just an access rail along. And then at the bulkhead at 57 right here, you can see a kind of alignment with that guardrail, but then it angles back as we had shown previously at the further reaches of that bulkhead. And this is that the 55 bulkhead, which is the neighbor, which we called out earlier in terms of precedent of material. But that material we would sort of carry through out this upper reaches of the project here. And so that really concludes the presentation for what we're trying to accomplish here.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have questions? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner
On the
Chu.
rear facade, is it possible to mount a guardrail at the back of the existing brick wall?
Yes. Yeah, we
My
could
only
definitely do that.
concern there is that the brick isn't gonna match the existing one, and that facade.
Right.
Arguably more visible than the one on Christopher, the one on the avenue.
Right.
You have
See
a
what you
pretty
mean.
good shot of that at the end of your deck.
Yes, I'm
You
trying
did
to
a
scroll through it here. There we go. Oh,
that
yeah,
one.
right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. Understood. Right. Yeah, you have this sort of existing knuckling that happens
Yeah.
at the corners. But you're saying here the
You can mount
preference.
something off the back of the wall
Mhm.
more open as opposed to have a non-matching brick on top.
Like a railing.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Now, would you want something to just along the lines of a picket or
I think something simple is all you really
something
need.
simple? Okay.
Visually porous.
They're doing the front pretty fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, and I'll note that there's no one in the room to speak on this item, so I'll turn it over to Gregory to see if we have remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a few hands raised for this item. The first we'll be hearing from is Chloe Gregoire from Village Preservation. Chloe Gregoire, I've promoted you to panelist. So once you could do so, please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good day, Commissioners. My name is Chloe Gregoire, and I'm speaking on behalf of Village Preservation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. Village Preservation finds the visibility of these rooftop additions and railings to be excessive. We ask that the visibility be significantly reduced, especially as viewed over the primary facade from vantage points along Christopher Park, looking northeast from the intersections of Grove Street, West 4th Street, Sheridan Square, and 7th Avenue South, and over the side facade in conjunction with the adjacent 2-story Stonewall Inn, an individual landmark. Extra attention must be paid to the aesthetics and prominence of new construction proposed within the view sheds of Christopher Park and the Stonewall Inn, which are both nationally significant as part of the Stonewall National Monument. The proposed glassy additions and their slanted primary facades should be redesigned to better evoke the studio windows found throughout this area of the Greenwich Village Historic District. And further consideration should be given to the metal finish. The bright bronze color shown on page 40 of the presentation deck would stand out inappropriately against the context of the surrounding color palette. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Jeremy Woodoff from the Victorian Society of New York. Jeremy Woodoff, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jeremy Woodoff speaking for the Victorian Society, New York. The proposed rooftop additions appear to be fairly modest and well set back. Though visible because of the siding of the building, the resulting visibility appears to be within acceptable limits. However, we found that the boards showing mock-ups of visibility are extremely confusing, especially regarding the railings. Site view studies number 1 and 6 on boards 19 and 24 appear to show in yellow highly visible railings. Yet this railing doesn't appear on the plan or section views of the building, although we did note that it does finally appear towards the end of the presentation. The visibility needs to be clarified, and if the railings are as visible as some of these mock-up boards indicate, it needs to be reduced. We also could find no information in the presentation to document the advertised reconstruction of the rear facades. They appear to be in good condition based on the pictures provided. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please state your name for the record and unmute your line. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hey, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC commends this very thoughtful addition that responds very nicely to its environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised on this item, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 2 recommends approval of the rooftop addition, modification of the stair bulkhead, restoration of the front and rear facades, cornice and railing, and denial of the front facade rooftop addition unless the pitch is increased and the amount of glazing is increased to lessen visibility and to evoke a historic artist studio window. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you. So I'd like to ask the applicant if you'd like to respond to those comments. It may be that you've already addressed the community board's comments in this scheme we're seeing today.
Correct. Yeah, the earlier one was much higher, and in fact, we really sort of angled it back quite a bit, and then we responded also to the materiality and the direct asks from them to really look at this, and so yeah, I mean we work closely with the landmarks team to try to help shape this. And get this to a point where you really wouldn't see it from the street, as we sort of indicated across the street. So.
All right, commissioners, any final questions? All right, let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
You, Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. All right. The hearing is closed. And so this is a proposal for these rooftop additions that are modeled on historic studio windows in terms of their form and shape and materiality. There are also bulkheads and railings and the proposal to raise the parapet at the rear facade. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chu, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think that in general, the massing of the rooftop addition is relatively minimal without a lot of obvious views of its mass or its presence. I don't really have an issue with it. I do want to make note of the comment that was made about the railing, and I do think maybe the applicant needs to look at that with staff again. I'm trying to understand where the railing is because I don't see it on the section. And I don't see it on the rendering up on the front facade. So I'm wondering which one is being discussed. The one back behind,
Yes.
not the one below.
Yeah. I think that's the one you catch glimpses of.
Catch a glimpse.
Right here, correct, yeah.
Okay. So to that, I do think you need to work a little bit more with the staff and the design of it to minimize its impact. The other comment I had previously was not to raise the brick with new brick on top of the existing rear facade and to explore mounting a guardrail either on the deck or to the back of the masonry wall and set it back from the existing brick. Otherwise, I don't have issues with the application. Yep.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
I agree with Commissioner Chu's comments. The only thing that I would add is that I think that the finish color of the bulkheads is too dark. I know they're trying to match the adjacent building, but that I believe is very minimally visible, whereas this is visible. So I think a more natural zinc color would be more appropriate, and that might help paint that same color with of the railing, might help it disappear more.
Okay.
And I agree about the railing at the existing roof to not raise the parapet.
Okay. Commissioner Goldblum,
I agree with both Ann and Steve.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
I agree with my fellow commissioners.
And in the interest of time, I'm just going to ask if anyone has different opinions or thoughts on this. All right, noting that there isn't, I think we can go ahead. We're all in agreement. So we can go ahead and make a motion to approve this with the condition that they work with staff to lighten the color of the bulkheads and to work on the detailing of the railing to minimize its visibility and replace the proposed parapet, raising of the parapet with a railing at the rear facade, working with staff. Yep, that I got. So Commissioner Chu, could you make that motion?
Okay, in the case of LPC 2404610, 57 to 59 Christopher Street, Greenwich Village District, the two Italianate-style row houses built in 1853 and altered in the early 20th century. The application is to construct rooftop additions and reconstruct rear facade. I just want to note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Greenwich. That the design and materiality of the proposed rooftop additions featuring flat metal panels and sloped roof profile will recall aspects of studio windows and will otherwise be in keeping with the variety of materials and forms found on rooftop accretions throughout the historic district. The commission would like the applicant to look at a zinc material finish as opposed to the dark black currently proposed. That the proposed rooftop additions limited to the front southern portion of the buildings will be set back from the front facades, thereby maintaining a sense of building's original scale and massing. That the rooftop additions will be barely visible over the primary facade and will be seen only from oblique angles along Grove Street and Christopher Street and in the context of wide streetscape with taller buildings when viewed from 7th Avenue South. That the proposed sloped corrugated metal clad rooftop stair bulkhead will only be partially visible from a public thoroughfare from limited vantage points in conjunction with the proposed rooftop additions, and that the dark bronze colored finish of the proposed rooftop that the finish should be more of a zinc color sympathetic to the neighboring building rooftop finish. That the additions will be in keeping with the typical utilitarian rooftop accretions found throughout the historic district. That the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building and the Greenwich Village Historic District. The applicant will work with staff on revising the rear facade to a detail of a mounted handrail as opposed to extending the height of the existing brick facade, and work with staff on the detailing of the railing at the front facade.
Right, thank you. And Commissioner Holford Smith, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
Aye.
With 9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
All
which
right,
is-
the next item is item number 10, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 2311249, 340 West 85th Street in the Riverside West End Historic District Extension 1, Block 1246, Lot 49. The application is for a work at a colonial revival style clubhouse dwelling designed by George B. de Gerdsdorf and built in 1926 to 27. And the application is to install a barrier-free access ramp.
Hi there, my name is Sean Flynn. I'm the firm of Curtis Ginsberg Architects. I'll be the applicant today. We're going to start off with Jenna Brines from Wishfish.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much. I just wanted to quickly introduce us and the project. So we are so excited to finally be moving forward with this project, which we call 3 Arts. And this is going to be a senior affordable housing project, 62 units, including the super. And we're very excited to have the opportunity to retain this beautiful building, but also be bringing very, very affordable housing to a part of the city where we don't often get a chance to do these types of projects. So we're very excited to be able to make the building more accessible. Yeah, so most of the changes we're talking about are to enable the building to better serve the future residents, to make the building more accessible, and then the other improvements we're making to the buildings to make the building energy efficient and really modernize the building and ensure that it is the place for low-income New Yorkers to safely age in place.
Hi, my name is Mary Kay Judy, and I'm the restoration consultant. And I just want to tell you a few words about the history of the building. So the 3 Arts Club was first formed in 1903, and it was an organization to support women that were moving into New York City that were working in the arts. And so after just a few years, they had enough demand, so they moved up to this site, 340 West 85th Street. There are actually 2 buildings on the site, and they had some contributions from local philanthropists, and they were able to demolish the 2 buildings on the site and then purpose-built this building, completed in 1927. So it's a remarkable gem that it's still so intact. I know you're not interested in the interior, but it is also a tax credit project. So we're really endeavoring to make sure we preserve both the interior and the exterior. So most of our items are staff items, but I'm going to turn it over to Sean, who's going to talk about the addition of the accessible ramp. So thank you very much.
This is our team and a historic photo of the building. You can see the top floor art studios set back, and we'll be talking mainly about the bottom of the building, the entryway, the base, the archway, and the balconette. It's a little closer to the mic. I think we all know the neighborhood. Historic photographs. The existing building on the left and our proposed new accessibility ramp visible on the right in the rendering. So what we're proposing is, well, let me first talk a little bit about what's there now. Colonial Revival Building by George de Geersdorff. The original designation noted the fanlight transom, the iron balconette on top of it, the arched center entry, the semi-engaged Corinthian columns, the denticulated hood, and the signage, which at that time was Volunteers of America and has since been restored to show the original sign, the 3 Arts Club. Historically, also noted in the designation are the grills to the left and right in the base. On the right, those grills are windows. They're areaways with windows to an occupied apartment. And on the left, they are actual air or ventilation openings for combustion air for the boiler room, which occupies the space to the left.
So we are proposing an exterior ramp that extends west towards the high point of the sloping sidewalk and a stair that extends east towards the low point. The stair and landing the actual dimension of the column sets the narrow point of the landing at the top of the stair. We're trying to keep the staircase itself as wide as possible. You can see that on the left, in the lower right image. And we're extending the ramp down to the right and into the slope or to the uphill side to shorten the overall length of the ramp. The column itself creates the choke point, the narrowest point, and we are constrained to keep the ramp within the dimension that will allow us to not create an encroachment into the right of way. And we are in fact keeping the widest possible sidewalk that we can here. And we are slightly narrower than the existing areaway curbs and iron fences, which you can see to the left in the plan. On both sides, actually, both east and west of us. I'll just note the squares in the sidewalk are coal scuttle openings. There's an original coal vault underneath. Those will all be maintained. These are some of the details of the ramp. It's our intent of the existing stair. It's our intention with the ramp to actually leave these essentially reversible, leave these in place and build over them. We'll be discussing that at greater length with the structural engineer, but we're trying to basically leave it in a reversible condition. The handrail that you see there is actually a later addition that was previously approved by the commission and will be removed. However, the new handrails that will go in are intended to more or less match that, which itself is a very traditional culinary revival style, and based on the originals that we can find inside the building in the vestibule. This building of the new landing will actually encroach on the bottom of the Corinthian column. So we will be capturing and concealing the base of the column and the plinth. And what we are proposing to do is to actually recreate the Taurus, Scotia, and astragals in a new piece of cast stone and place them around the existing column at a higher elevation. The plinth block itself will be inscribed in the surface of the stone landing. I think you notice, well, you can see it here, you can see that the existing stone steps are a greenish gray granite speckled. Our intent is to continue the material palette of greenish gray granite, of stone. All of the stonework is coated at this time. So we will study it to see if it's possible to expose it and match it. Otherwise, we'll do the stone and then recoat it to match the existing coatings. Before and after renderings.
Saying that the stuff of things right, left and right is granite.
The base that you can see in the existing, and the entire door assembly, the columns, the architrave, everything's been coated.
And if you scrape off the paint on the columns, you get granite. You spray granite.
No, we suspect, but we don't know for a fact that what you'll get is either limestone or not.
Right, but if you scrape off the base, you get the granite.
No, if you scrape off the base in the existing, we believe you'd also get limestone or white marble, which would be consistent with the colonial block. So what we're proposing is the new, I'll call it fascia or cheek wall, right, on our steps and ramp would also match the existing. And our new stairs and landing assembly the landing on the outside and the landing as it goes into the doorway will match the existing. As you can see in the bottom images, the door, once we've done this, the door is too tall. So we will be rebuilding the door. Those will be new doors, mimicking the proportions of the recesses, et cetera, and installed in the opening. It's actually that door that sets the height. We have to have a legal door that's a minimum of 6 foot 8 inches. And that's setting the height of our landing. Those doors are 6 foot 8. Yeah. The original doors are a little over 7, about 7'6". Two views. The ramp itself, because of the areaways that are there, we're actually want to maintain the light and air that's access to those windows in those areaways. And so the ramp itself will be a walkable, ADA compliant grill, in effect. A painted steel grill. Is that because of the aerial light well? Yes, yes. The openings, as I mentioned, both to the air openings for boiler combustion visible on the right-hand image, and the window openings have their original security grills. All of that's going to be maintained. We're not going to touch anything on it. And just to sort of resolve the sequence, we also have to rebuild the interior. We have to, this ramp is, as much as we can get on the outside, we're keeping it low and we're putting the other half. We have to gain almost 4 feet in height. So we're putting the other half of the ramp on the interior of the building. We're rebuilding the vestibule stairs, and adding this rampway to the inside. You can see demolition on the top and the new plan on the bottom. And actually in the lower left, you can see an original handrail from the 1920s in the vestibule. And that is the source for the handrail grip that we're proposing from the exterior. I think that's our last image.
Okay. And the handrails on the outside that you showed, I wasn't clear, do those stay or do those get removed because everything's sort of going up?
The existing handrails, which are actually visible in the lower right, were visible. Let's say, well, anyway, we are removing those because they're in the way now.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Other questions, commissioners?
Oh.
Yes, Commissioner Chu.
So you have, this only gets you part way and you have to ramp on the inside as well. There wasn't enough room to ramp the whole way on the inside of the exterior.
There is not. Okay. It's a substantial compromise in what we're doing. And as Mary Kay mentioned, we are applying for the tax credits. The formal rooms and axial layout of the ground floor is part of that.
Another question is, what is the actual height at the top of the stoop rise from the sidewalk?
I don't
It's
remember
like
the
3 or
exact
4
number, but
steps, right?
It's less than 30 inches.
It is.
Yes.
So you don't need a guardrail.
That's correct.
Just a
It is
handrail.
not a guardrail.
And that's why you designed just a curb with the rail.
That is
handrail.
correct. That's correct too.
Did you ever, the stone that's on the stoop is the stone that you will bring down the stair, is that correct?
That is it.
Okay. Was that ever looked at as cladding the face of the ramp stair? The only reason I raise this is because the white feels very jarring to me, and it's not the original building at all, and I feel like it's more flow out the building and not confused with the existing historic facade.
Agreed. And actually that was not formally drawn up and looked at. It's certainly something I've thought about.
Okay.
But, hasn't really moved to fruition.
Okay, but it's something that you guys would consider.
Yes.
Thank you.
Understanding that you also have to run it by the State Historic Preservation Office as well, right? Okay.
Right now, they're deferring to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
All right, okay.
But eventually, yeah.
Okay. All right, other questions? All right, is there anyone in the room who'd like to speak on this item? No, and noting that there isn't, I'm turning it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of hands raised in the attendees list. The first we'll be hearing from is Megan Fitzpatrick from Landmark West. Megan Fitzpatrick, I've promoted you to panelist. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee believes that this application has faithfully thought of the best ways to make a historic structure ADA compliant while making efforts to preserve the historic integrity of the facade and simultaneously meet the needs of the residents. The detailing from native handrail profiles to column-based toruses is especially appreciated. We suggest, in order to reduce the size of the entire composition, the stairs could be moved to the west. Doing so would make shared use of the primary landing and save a masonry opening from being obstructed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I am promoting you to panelist now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. We are thrilled that this beautiful building will be gaining the ADA access it needs. HDC believes that quality is a mark of equality, so ADA access features should be treated as direct evolutions of the buildings they serve and be designed with the same level of quality and care that would rightly be put into any feature of the existing building. We appreciate that for the proposed ramp, the applicant has matched existing materials, including bronze, limestone, and granite. We believe, though, that this design can be even further integrated into the look and feel of the existing building by articulating the ramp to more closely resemble the details of the building's existing stone plinth. Thank you.
I'm looking at the attendees list now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends approval of the ramp on the condition that it be made of wrought iron and include a wrought iron design feature to complement the balconette, and the top handrail will be made of brass or bronze as mandated by law. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair
All
Carroll.
right, thank you. So I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to any of the comments we've heard.
A couple of points. We understand the desirability of tightening up the composition as suggested by pulling the stair to the west uphill. It's a code-driven issue, and it's something we could take up with the building department. We're trying to keep the stair. The choke point is the face of the column, the narrow point. You can't reduce below 3 feet 8 inches. However, once you're past that, we'd like to have the stair as broad as possible so that it's as gracious, commodious as possible. But that also then requires that the landing be equal in width to the equal in depth to the width of the stair, but not less than 4 feet. So, or not more than 4 inches. So we ended up with a 4-foot landing. It's a code-driven issue there. We could artificially squeeze the width of the stair so that it is as narrow as the choke point created by the round of the half-inch column, but then you get the whole stair narrow, which we thought was speak to that one specifically. Okay. And as far as detailing of the stonework, yes, I mean, we do have, and I don't know which specific image shows it well, but there is a shape to the top of the stonework that would, be referential and respectful to 5 tent base. the final point I guess I'll make is that with the ironwork, or the recreation of the ironwork, we are attempting to, you can see the sense of centering and verticality created by the arch, the architrave, the balconette, and the window surround above. And we are trying to leave as much of that sense of verticality in place as possible and not muddy up the view of the building. And so since we have a handrail, not a guardrail, we have a handrail condition, we can leave it open. We believe that is respectful.
All right, and just on the base of the ramp, I know it looks white here because you are anticipating coating it or painting it to match the paint on the base and the door surround, but you were saying that you would be doing it in whatever the stone is that is under that paint on the building?
Yeah, maybe Mary can talk a little bit about that process.
I'll just jump in then. We don't know what is under the coatings. It looks like they've been probably applied over several decades. So there's something cementitious and there's something latex and something oil. But we do have a plan to do a series of mock-up removals to identify the substrates. And ideally, it's going to be either removable and they just put these on cosmetically. We'll be able to expose the substrate. And ideally then the exterior cladding of the limestone on the ramp can also match that as natural stone. And I think maybe even we would consider that even if we did the mock-ups and we could identify the original color and texture, we would replicate that or, do that on the outside without coating it, just, as a nod to the original.
Okay. All right. Okay, commissioners, any final questions? All right, let's close the hearing. Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second. Second.
Opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And thank you for explaining all of the logistical issues that resulted in a ramp of this both length and height. And we understand that you're dealing with also ramping up on the inside and trying to balance that. This proposal is to do a ramp that is still below 30 inches, so you can do a guardrail and not do a handrail, not a guardrail that would be more dense. Ideally, it would have a stone face that would match the stone on the building if those can be exposed. We did have a little bit of discussion about an alternative for that. We can think about that in our discussion. And so we'll begin now. Commissioner Chen, would you like to start this one?
Sure.
Yep. Okay, so we just closed the hearing, so Emma can answer it. You can ask the question, and then Emma will get the answer and answer it. So what was the question?
The remote operator.
Oh.
That hasn't been fully explored yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Commissioner Chen.
My favorite subject. Anytime you improve access to a building, and I must compliment the applicant for the thoughtful logistic and dealing with all the technical requirements, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I love the way that you're duplicating the handrail from the inside, replacing the one that we approved temporarily for the outside, and I think this makes a lot of sense. My only concern is I hope whatever material you expose on the base, that it can be implemented, but I appreciate the intent. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum.
Agreed with Wellington. I think that the only thing I would suggest to supplement that is I think that the way that the granite is shown in the renderings is kind of coming over the edge and then down a little bit, just is very distracting, I think. I think that whatever the material of the base turns out to be, I think it's 50-50 that it's granite or limestone. It usually would be granite. And if it is granite, it should be pretty easy to remove whatever they stuck on it. I think whatever that material turns out to be, if it's granite, then it's okay to carry the granite straight down and it'll kind of blend in with the base nicely. If it's limestone, then I would suggest they take the limestone up, over, and then down to make like kind of an edge curve so that the granite is restricted to the horizontal surfaces and the face can kind of blend with the base better. I would strongly urge them, no matter what they find, that if it's at all technically possible, to strip the base.
Yeah. Commissioner Holmgren-Smith,
I'm in agreement with my fellow commissioners.
Commissioner Chu.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Goldblum explained very well the feelings I have about the base materiality. I don't have an issue with the composition of the stair being more generous to the left side, in fact, because the ramp is so long, it needs more weight to balance it out. So that's it.
Okay, Commissioner Lutfi.
I'm in agreement with my fellow commissioners.
Commissioner Master.
Yes, I agree with the commissioners. I have nothing else to add.
And Commissioner Chapin.
Yes, I also agree.
Okay. All right. So I think we're all in agreement. We'll make a motion to approve this and with the condition that they work with the staff to do the sampling, the test for the removal, and to work on the detailing of the curb pending the results of those tests. You think we can make that motion? I can add the modification.
Yeah, okay,
again.
sure. All right. When it gets to that part, I'll turn it over to you. In the matter of LPC 23-11249, 340 West 85th Street, the application is to install a barrier-free access ramp. Noting the building styles, scale, materials, and details among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Riverside West End Historic District Extension 1. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the installation of the proposed ramp and stairs will allow for barrier-free access to the main building entrance in the least intrusive manner possible, that only the historic doors from the custom bases of the entrance surround will be replaced or obscure, and that the new doors and the replicated column bases will retain the design and proportionality of the main entrances, that the design and materials of the ramp, including metal grating, limestone cladding, and granite walking surfaces will be in keeping with the material at the building's base and will harmonize with the building and the streetscape, that the railing will be simple in design with vertical members rendering it as transparent possible, and that the proposed ramp will not overwhelm the building or
Staff to test the removal of the coating at the base of the building and work with the staff on the final stone selection and detailing pending the results of those tests. All right, and Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
John, would you call the-
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Holford-Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi, Commissioner Master.
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes. I'm sorry,
Eight.
I'm sorry, 8 in favor. Sorry, I can't count. 8 in favor, none opposed.
Okay. All right, thank you. So good luck with that. All right, and we'll move to
Item 11.
item 11.
Item number 11, docket number 2405534, Riverside Park Dinosaur Playground Scenic Landmark, Borough of Manhattan, Block 1897, Lot 1. This is an application for an advisory report. A playground and pathways built in the 1930s within an English Romantic style park built in 1873 to 75 and designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, with modifications and additions built in 1934 to 37, designed by Clifton Lloyd and Gilmore Clark. The application is to amend Commission Advisory Report 24-03689 for site work at the playground and surrounding landscape.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephen Whitehouse of Star Whitehouse Landscape Architects and Planners, consulting designers to the New York City Department of Parks for the Riverside Park Dinosaur Playground. We appeared before you before with this project. We are coming for you today with a very minor modification for your consideration. This is the existing conditions of the playground, and I want to focus in at the entrance of Riverside Drive, the sidewalk entrance from Riverside Drive. What exists there now is a stepped ramp and a true ramp, but is a ramp that exceeds handicapped access, but it has been used for maintenance access into the park. What I'm showing you now is the plan that we brought to you before for review, and the design at 97th Street entrance created handicapped accessibility for the first time into this part of the park. And it kept it within the outer frame of the granite cheek walls that define that staircase within the landscape and the boundaries of the trees on either side. And after we had prepared that and gone through the first round of reviews at New York City Parks, a second round of reviews that occurred after our submission to the Landmarks Commission identified operational considerations that this design did not address. Specifically, that they use small vehicles called gators, about the size of a glorified golf cart, to do most of the landscape maintenance and repair within Riverside Park. And this design, and vehicles which do not go on the city streets, and this design precluded their entrance at this end of the park. So we're bringing before you today for your consideration the introduction of a new path at this entrance. The grade there does not meet accessibility standards, but is a minimum width of about 8 feet to allow these gators to get in and out of the park. They are delivered by a truck typically to the curb or onto the sidewalk by the park staff, and then the crews go out and through Riverside Park. And the reason it's happening here instead of somewhere else is worth consideration. I wanted to run through that with you. This is where the circle there in red is that entrance to the park. And what is outlined in red is the path through the city streets that would otherwise get to the dinosaur playground from Riverside Park out to West End through a intersection with 96th Street and West End, which also is the entrance to the West Side Highway and up. That is the way that larger vehicles and police vehicles get into the park, but as I said before, the gators do not go out on the street. What is shown in blue on the upper part of the image is the next northern entrance that the gators do use to get into this part of the park, about a third of a mile away. And we have some pictures of both of those conditions to follow. So on the top, I actually want to point your attention to number 2 on the top right. That is the bridge over 96th Street that carries Riverside Drive over. And so number 1 on the left of that is the view from the top of that bridge. And that is the sort of entrance off of that street that's becoming a highway ramp into the park. That would be the access that exists off the city streets. The images below on the left is the park promenade on the upper level at between 102nd and 103rd Street. And on the right is the steep park path that comes down where you can get a gator down, which is also used by bicyclists, strollers, etc. within the park. What we are showing you here in this view looking west towards the park from the middle of 97th Street crosswalk is the entrance that we were talking about is in the far right of this photograph. The area of the proposed entrance to this new maintenance access is that X on the existing iron fence. And on the left here, a little closer view from the sidewalk level of where that is. And on the right, the view from down below at the at the park path immediately inside the park, looking up on the hillside back towards Riverside Drive. That would be the path of this proposed maintenance access. It does not connect around the corner. Going up Riverside Drive puts you on the top of that bridge, not down at 96th Street. And along that transect, if you will, from the 97th Street entrance up to the bridge, this is sort of the one place that has the gentlest grades and the fewest trees. So just zooming in on those two things, on the left-hand side, the prior design with the non-compliant ramp and the stepped ramp. On the right, the stairs with an accessible ramp between them, and this proposed maintenance ramp shown as number 1 in the circle. This is an aerial bird's eye view, a modification of the one previously submitted with the prior design, showing where the new entrance maintenance access would be to the right of the current alignment of the stairs. Excuse me, to the left. It was to the left, to the south. In terms of materials, we'll just be using the standard parks materials. The Riverside Drive sidewalk being the hex block, asphalt path, and the standard Riverside Park perimeter fence. And back again to a view of the whole. I wanted to note two things. This was taken back to Community Board 7 since it was reviewed by Landmarks, where the plan and this modification received unanimous approval. I would also note in some sort of feedback of your prior comments here, you'll note in the play equipment area that the sort of curved planters have been made straight to more correspond to the historic alignment. And secondly, we have worked, the Parks Department has instructed us to use the concrete and wood bench, as was remarked in your comments as well. So that will be used in place of the World's Fair bench that was shown in our prior submission. And that's our presentation. Happy to take any comments.
How frequently would this path be used for these gator vehicles?
My sense is going through there's probably at least 4 days out of the week, if not every day, there is a crew that is running through there in terms of it's the access to the southern part of that section of the park.
And I know there are pavers that allow grass to grow through it, so it looks more like a lawn. Would that be something that could be considered here?
We are considering year-round access and also honestly considering the ability of this being able to be used by a bicycle entering the park here because it is an access to a designated green lane.
Thank you.
Other questions? Let me just check. Okay, not seeing any other questions at this time. We will move to public testimony, and I will turn it over to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of hands raised on the attendees list. The first we'll be hearing from is Megan Fitzpatrick from Landmark West. Megan Fitzpatrick, I've promoted you to panelist. So please unmute your line, state your name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. The Landmark West Certificate of Appropriateness Committee understands the need for maintenance vehicles within the park, but wishes there was a way to use the many extent paved areas rather than adding additional impervious surfaces around this playground. Our committee examined alternate routes that did not cross with the primary pedestrian access. Unfortunately, all of these would involve interrupting original granite walls or decorative balustrades. And we acknowledge the proposed may be the least invasive option presented. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Jeremy Woodoff from the Victorian Society of New York. Jeremy Woodoff, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hello again, Commissioners. Jeremy Woodoff speaking for the Victorian Society, New York. In scenic landmarks, historic landscape designs should not be altered for the convenience of contemporary maintenance operations. Instead, maintenance techniques should accommodate themselves to the historic park design. I want to say to begin that we are very happy that the Parks Department has made some modifications to the design based on the Commission's recommendations. The proposed 10-foot wide asphalt strip would interrupt and cover an area of pastoral planted landscape. It is not appropriate based on any aesthetic or historic criteria, and it will exacerbate the very problem of flooding that this project is meant to solve. However, some good might come of it. This new pavement could also serve to provide an ADA compliant path to the playground. Then the pair of historic step ramps just to the north at the park entry could be restored. This would return them to their original design and also eliminate the awkward angled switchback ramp that had been proposed for ADA access. And I would ask that Mr. Whitehouse pointed out that the proposed straight path would not meet ADA requirements, but I think with some tweaking of the configuration of that path, it might be made to do so. And we would recommend that that be tried out to see if it would work. Restoring instead of eliminating the historic step ramps, coupled with the new path to provide ADA access, would provide both access and restoration and would bring the project into the realm of appropriateness. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I'm looking through our attendees list now, and I do not see any further hands raised. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
All right, thank you. Would you like to respond to the comments we've heard?
I agree with the comment of Landmark West that this appeared to be the least disruptive route that presented itself in this corner of the park. We did at a number of occasions look at alternate routes for access between the Riverside Drive sidewalk promenade and this middle path of the park, including the area where the maintenance path is presented. And it will not work as a straight line. It would actually be more pavement in order to make this an accessible area there. And the other thing, which I think New York City Parks is trying to accomplish wherever possible, is to provide an accessible route in direct concert and adjacency to the non-accessible stairs or other routes, which is something that the previously approved design does. So I think those were the drivers of these decisions there. I think the comment was very thoughtful, but I'd just like to explain, where this design comes from.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, any final questions? Let's move to our discussion. Commissioner Chu, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
Moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Holford Smith, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing's closed and we'll begin our discussion. And this is a discrete element that is related to, but separate from the application we previously reviewed for the playground. And we did ask the applicants to separate it so they could go back to the community board. So the community board has supported it, and we've heard testimony in support, and then also some suggestions about incorporating barrier-free access, which the applicant responded to. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one?
Sure, thank you, Sarah. Obviously, it's always unfortunate when you have to have additional paving in the scenic landmark, but this is a fairly small piece of asphalt and or asphalt path. And the comments that were raised about the possibility of other alternatives, obviously they have been, I think, fairly diligently explored. And even if you could put the handicap ramp together, maintenance path, it might not be the wisest thing to do in terms of situations together. In any event, I think while that, it's necessary to have the access, it's not the easiest things with the elevations in this particular area. And I think Parks, working with the architect, the landscape architect firm, has been trying to be careful about trying to achieve the best alternative here in a somewhat difficult situation. So I think I can approve it as presented.
To our resident park expert on this, but which I think that her comments, make a lot of sense, but it's also clear that the applicant spent a good deal of time thinking about the best way to implement this access. So I can approve it or agree with it.
Right. Commissioner Chen?
Same here.
All right. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I can approve it, and I want to add a point to the applicant. It isn't that it's a good idea with the ADA. The ADA requires that the handicapped entrance, where possible, be at the same point as the non-handicapped. So there really isn't much choice. Thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you for raising that. Commissioner Goldblum?
I share my comrades' thoughts on this. I think it's totally appropriate, but I do want to also thank them for the modifications to the design, which I think are fantastic. And I think that we should put that on our little Excel chart as conformed with requests as we tally the responses to these kind of things.
Sure. And I can give an update on that, but we'll finish the comments.
I think it's very appropriate.
Commissioner Chu?
Yes, I would agree. I think it's essentially making it a public path because everybody's going to take that. But you can't set those vehicles on that designated path. So.
Okay. Commissioner Master?
Yeah, I agree 100% with Commissioner Chapin. It's appropriate. And Sarah, just so that you know, the sound is coming in and out.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yes.
We actually had an AV person come in to help make our audio better last week. So we're doing our best. Thank you for letting us know that. Okay, so I think we're all in agreement to support this, and just an update on our discussions about The review that the advisory review that we do, as I said last time, we found that over 5 years, there were only 5 where we had additional comments beyond the motion. And we have found that in at least 4 of those, they were very considered, and changes were in fact made and considered by both the Public Design Commission as well as the Parks Department. And further, we've had a meeting with the Public Design Commission to just talk about coordination. And in fact, there is a lot of coordination that is already happening behind the scenes that is just not very transparent, but they do share every resolution with their commissioners in advance of a hearing, and they do discuss our motions. So we're talking to them about ways that we can make all of that process a little more transparent, but just be assured that it is happening and your input is valuable. All right, so Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to approve?
Sure, thank you, Sarah. In the matter of an advisory report, Borough of Manhattan, LPC 24-05534, Riverside Park, Dinosaur Playground, Scenic Landmark. A playground and pathways built in the 1930s within an English Romantic style park built in 1873 to 1875 and designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, with modifications and additions built in 1934 and 37 and designed by Clifton Lloyd and Gilmore Clark. Application is to amend Commission Advisory Report 24-03689 for site work at the playground and surrounding landscape. I recommend that a favorable report be issued, finding that the proposed path will help provide necessary access for maintenance and emergency vehicles to the playground and surrounding parkland, that the construction of the path within a lawn area along the border of the park will not significantly reduce the overall amount of landscaping within the section of the park, detract from any prominent vistas, or result in the loss of any mature trees. That the limited removal of a portion of the simply designed fencing and installation of paving will create an entrance which is in keeping with a variety of entrance to the park along Riverside Drive in terms of placement, size, materials, and simplicity of design, and that the proposed work will not eliminate any significant historic features or detract from the naturalistic character of the Riverside Park scenic landmark.
Right, and Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, and John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master,
Aye.
9 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's approved. Thank you. We're going to do one more item, and then we're going to read one item into the record.
2 items.
I think you already read the other
Yeah,
one.
yeah, okay. So the next and final item is item number 12, docket number 2406008, 19 East 74th Street in the Upper East Side Historic District, Borough of Manhattan, Block 1389, Lot 12, an application for a certificate of appropriateness. An Italianate-style residence built circa 1869 and altered by Schwartz and Gross in 1930. And the application is to modify window openings at the rear facade.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Bernadette Artis, Preservation Department staff. This application is for work at the rear facade of 19 East 74th Street. The work will not be visible from a public thoroughfare. These are photographs of the front of the building, just to orient you to the townhouse. This is the rear facade. The existing addition is shown on the left. The middle is showing what was reviewed at staff level, and on the right is the proposed. So just to remind you, the commission rules allow the staff to combine masonry openings on the floors with the exception of the top floor. The lower 2 floors, we can combine all of the openings. However, in this case, we're looking at the second floor, and the staff rules only allow us to combine openings if one opening is left uncombined. So in this case, because the building only has 2 openings, the only way they would be able to combine that opening is at a hearing. So this will not be visible from a public thoroughfare. And the applicants are here if there are questions.
Any questions? Okay, let's see. I will note that there is no one in the room to testify. I'll ask Gregory if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have one hand raised on the attendees list, that being Nuha from the Friends of the Upper East Side. Nuha Ansari, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Chair Carroll, Honourable Commissioners, my name is Nuha Ansari and I'm speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side Historic Districts. Friends' Preservation Committee does not object to the proposal to modify the masonry opening at the 3rd floor on the rear facade and install new steel casement windows. We find that the new windows are appropriate and match the style and arrangement of the previously approved window and door system on the 2nd floor, and we also appreciate that the new windows will match the design of the new windows on the main facade of the house. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hands raised on the attendees list, so I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 8 recommends approval. And I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, all right. Well, you have supportive testimony, so I'm not sure that there's anything else to say. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Right, okay. So let's make a motion to close the hearing. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you make that
So
motion?
moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Holford Smith, would you second that motion? Second.
Just getting them all in before you go. You're gonna be seconding everything.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. This is, as Bernadette said, here before us because the rules at the rules only allow the staff to combine all the openings at upper floors of rear facades at the lower floors. Bernadette explained it much better than I just did. It's the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I think we'll go ahead and start. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to do this one?
Harder to get this on than answer. I think this is an easy one. I see no issues and think it's appropriate.
All right, does everybody agree with that, or are there any other thoughts? Okay, so let's go ahead and make that motion.
Okay. With regard to LPC 24-05534, whoops, wrong one. Excuse me, it is the end of the day. With regards to LPC 2406-008, 19 East 74th Street, Upper East Side Historic District, an Italianate style residence built circa 1869 and altered by Schwartz and Gross in 1930. Application is to modify window openings at the rear facade. I note that the style, scale, material, and details of the building are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Upper East Side Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposal work at the rear facade will not eliminate or damage any significant architectural features, that the work will not be visible from a public thoroughfare, that only 2 window openings at a middle floor will be combined without eliminating or reducing the width of the outer pier, resulting in a modest alteration that will maintain the overall solidity of the facade, and that work will not detract from the significant historic or architectural character of the building or the historic district.
Thank you. And Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, and John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Chu,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Holford Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
9 in favor, 9 opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you. So that's approved. Thank you. And before we leave, commissioners, we just have to do one more thing. We have to read
Right.
the
Read
10
item
into
number
the record.
9 into the record.
Item 9.
Right, it's docket number 24-03142, 420 Amsterdam Avenue in the Upper West Side, Central Park West Historic District, Borough of Manhattan, Block 1228, Lot 29. An application for a certificate of appropriateness, a Romanesque revival style flats building with Renaissance revival style elements designed by Gilbert Schellinger and built in 1890 to 91. And the application is to legalize enclosing the areaway, replacing the fence, and installing a garbage enclosure without Landmarks Preservation Commission permits.
Right, and this will be heard at a future public meeting where we will open up the hearing and take testimony, but we welcome anyone who would like to speak at this time. Okay, noting that we don't have anyone. That concludes our items, and again, I want to thank Commissioner Holford Smith for your service, your dedication.